Hello and welcome to the Anime Explorations Podcast. This is a monthly anime book club podcast where we watch an anime series or film and talk about it. My name is Alex. I'm joined by our regular co-hosts.
I'm Tora.
I'm David.
And we are joined by our special guest, Blaine Dowler.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me back.
All right. Normally, when we kick off the show, we do talk about what we're watching, but we have a couple major news stories. A couple minor ones, and then one really big one that's going to take a while to talk about. So we're going to skip over what we're watching at the moment, particularly because we're in the middle of the season. So we can reevaluate that next episode as the season is wrapped. So, the smaller things up first. We had Otakon since our last recording session. We're also recording this during the Anime NYC convention in New York. None of us are attending that, but that's going on right now, so we're not going to talk about any announcements from that. But at Otakon, we had the Discotheque Media panel and the slightly extended video version on their YouTube channel, which they announced a whole bunch of new titles that they're distributing. Probably the big one for me, definitely the biggest one for me, is Naoki Urasawa's Monster. The anime adaptation of that manga is finally getting a physical media release, including with the dub that was produced by Viz Media for Hulu. But again, it was on the limited but incomplete DVD release that came out back in the day. But it's not currently on the streaming version that's on Netflix. So I am absolutely looking forward to getting to watch that with the dub, especially since there's a couple Critical Role actors on the cast.
Discotheque is doing good work out there.
Yep. Anything else for those of you who, I don't know if any of you watched it, any other licenses that caught your interest from there?
Nothing that stood out to me, personally. But yeah, Monster, I think that was the big one.
All right. Other stuff. Smaller little news stories. So we had a couple of minor ones. Sword World, the Japanese tabletop role-playing game that is related to Record of Lodoss War, has been licensed for an English language release. There is a crowdfunding campaign upcoming. It is not out yet. However, the publisher does have a quick start set of rules along with some pre-generated characters on their website. I will drop a link to that in the show notes for those who want to check it out. I'm always glad to see more Japanese tabletop role-playing games getting English language releases, and I think that with the design idioms that Japanese tabletop RPGs are built into, I think that works better for modern role-playing game groups with adults who have difficulty scheduling sessions because of, adult concerns.
Because of life.
But the big story, which is still ongoing, and has been going for most of the past month, is the FusterCluck that has been going on involving payment processors with Steam and itch.io and various other sources. And I'm bringing this up in an anime discussion because this kind of started a couple years ago, like 2022, over initially with Japanese art commission services sites like Pixiv and manga distribution sites like Manga Library Z. So sitting the Wayback Machine for 2022. Pixiv, along with a couple other sites like Fanbox and similar sorts of things, had announced that they would no longer be accepting Visa and MasterCard, or first for in general, and then eventually they loosened it up a bit, or adjusted it a bit to, they would only accept it from domestic, that is Japanese customers, not through international transactions. This was ostensibly due to basically controversial content on those sites. BDSM content, content involving characters with... Like, the reasons that were given by the people objecting were they gave us, it's because of characters, art with underage characters and that sort of thing. But there were a lot of suspicions raised in the anime fandom community at this time, because there is a long history of anti-adult media crusades connected to anti-LGBT crusades. That this was probably some international, that is, non-Japanese, right-wing, conservative, religious groups putting pressure on payment processors. But we didn't have anything to back it up. And because technically the people who were harmed by the, or no air quotes, people who were harmed by this were in Japan, and courts care about who the harmed party is when you file lawsuits over stuff like this. People in the U.S. or Canada or really anywhere outside of Japan couldn't file lawsuits to get into this. There had been some high-profile objections and concerns raised about this, including mangaka and Japanese member of parliament Ken Akamatsu, along with I see David raising an eyebrow there. Yes, the creator of Love Hina is now in the Japanese parliament, and as of this recording, is for the current prime minister is a vice minister of arts and culture. And objections were also raised to this by Yoko Taro, the creator of the Nier series, with basically saying that, hey, this allows a small minority of people who aren't even from your country, potentially, to have significant influence of what art and culture is allowed to exist by controlling how artists are financially able to be financially compensated for their work. Again, this Yoko Taro voicing out about this brought some attention through video game news circles, because Yoko Taro is a name, but didn't really pick up much traction outside of that. Fast forward to July 20th of this year, like not long after we recorded our last podcast. And a bunch of adult titles, many of them, I will say up front, were not great. Not just in terms of, they're like particular fetish content, but also in the sense of they were like shovelware works made using flipped assets from like the Unity store or the Unreal store. Were pulled from Steam. And Anna Valens, a reporter for the at that time recently revived a Waypoint vertical at Vice, reported that this efforts were brought back to a conservative religious advocacy group from Australia called Collective Shout. And they had been involved with previous campaigns to try and get Grand Theft Auto 5 and Detroit Become Human banned in Australia. And Collective Shout then raised objections to Vice's parent company, and that got the articles pulled, which then Anna Valens justifiably raised objections to, which caused all of Waypoint staff to quit publicly, which then caused the entire game media ecosystem to focus on this particular problem and the reporting by Anna Valens, just in time for the next stage of Collective Shout's campaign to kick in, when they targeted itch.io, which is basically what I describe as Bandcamp for media other than music. They do video games, they do books, tabletop role-playing games, art books, whatever. Fanzines, everything. And they pulled because of the issues that itch.io cited as how they have their back end set up. They pulled all media tagged not safe for work, which meant basically every piece of LGBT media off of itch.io was delisted while they could do an assessment because of the complaints from Collective Shout to payment card processors, which Collective Shout was probably happy with because that's their end game, but which also meant that now the entire LGBTQ community was now paying attention to how pressure on payment card processors like Visa and MasterCard could basically cause catastrophic damage to the financial livelihoods of LGBTQ artists, people involved in legal sex work, including only pornography, that sort of thing, just in general. And this led to what has been going on over the past month, a massive phone calling campaign against Visa, MasterCard, and Stripe, PayPal, and other payment card processors over this issue, and led to this news story getting picked up by Wired, by The Guardian. And probably what the biggest, most recent thing being is several people calling into Stripe, getting information from representatives saying, "Oh yes, LGBTQ content is against our terms of service, and we won't be, in general, is against our terms of service, and we won't be allowing funding for that." At which point then went back to like major news sources like the BBC and back to Wired, as well as game-specific news sources like Rascal and Aftermath and so on, who then started doing angry calls to, or at least inquisitive calls, some inquisitive, some angry, because Rascal and Aftermath, their back ends for handling subscriptions to their sites only work through Stripe, and often these sites also have cover LGBTQ issues in the game space and have LGBTQ writers on staff. Those calls are more extremely angry, which caused Stripe to rapidly backpedal, but backpedal in the kind of way that goes, "Oh, we're that doesn't eliminate this happening again in the future." So this story is still ongoing, and I very heavily summarized what's going on. I'm going to have a massive list of links to Kotaku and again Remap and Aftermath and Polygon and Game Rant and Anime News Network and so on in the show notes. This has been and of course Wired, and this has been a hell of a thing over this past month.
As it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it affects everybody, even if you're, presumably you're listening to this podcast because you like anime, but even people who don't like anime, there's only so many payment processors that are universally accepted, and if they're all being controlled by this extreme right-wing agenda, whether overtly or not, then that's going to affect you at some point or other. Even if you, agree with right-wing agendas, which, shame on you, at some point you're going to be doing something they don't like. I can pretty much guarantee it, so...
The life advice I try to follow is live your life in a way that'll make the Westboro Baptist Church picket your funeral. But this really reminds me of the OnlyFans explosion in 2021.
Yes.
We're starting to hit the tail end of lockdown, and OnlyFans just seemed out of nowhere to announce that they would not have any not safe for work content. To which a huge majority of the people online went, "Do they have other content? I wasn't aware of that."
The internet's like, isn't that your thing, though? That's all you do, right?
And it turns out it was all pressure from credit card companies, and they changed their minds and kept it going, which is actually good, because whether you agree with the not safe for work content on OnlyFans existing or not, everyone who's actually looked at that industry says this is the healthiest way for these performers to provide the content, and the way they get the biggest chunk of the payment pie. So it really does seem to be best for the people actually producing the content. So whether or not you think that content should exist is another discussion. But if the content is going to exist, it's probably the best way for it to exist.
History has shown us that censorship of any type of art or performance, whether you deem it morally acceptable or not, has negative consequences on society as a whole.
Yeah. I mean,
especially
I agree
to
with
its most
ratings.
marginalized members.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with rating systems. I'm of the opinion, produce anything you want. Clearly label it. And parents, you decide what you want your kids to have access to. That's kind of my
quite
philosophy.
frankly, that requires parents to actually do some work. But, I mean, AO3 has an excellent labeling system.
Don't have kids if you don't want to do the work.
But you know what? I worked with a tutoring company for 15 years. It's a well-known one, but they don't need a free plug here. I have seen a lot of single parents who are forced to work multiple jobs to keep food on the table and roof overhead. And they just can't police what their children are engaging with 24/7. Because
I don't think
they
even the most
have to
active
let
parent can.
yeah, they have to let the 14-year-old monitor the 8-year-old and go through it because, if they don't go to work, they can't put food on the table. Some of them are because they are relatively new to the country and their overseas credentials don't apply here, which may or may not be validated. I mean, I once met someone who was complaining that her overseas nursing credentials were not valid in Canada. And I was a lot less supportive when she made the comment, I didn't spend 2 years at university for that for nothing. Nursing here is a 10-year program, not 2. So that tells me she came from a region where nurses are not expected to do what nurses are expected to do here. Right? It's probably a very doctor-heavy medical system there.
I mean, that sounds like CNA certification.
Yeah, I mean, basically there are times when the overseas certification should not apply. I say, let them hash it out themselves. We have a certification test that everyone has to pass to become a nurse here. Just say if you're coming from overseas with the credentials, well, you pass this test with the same 93% it's a 90% or better test here. Which actually means we have some really strong nurses because we rented it from the US and 93% of the questions are medical related and 7% of the questions are how do you bill in the US system that the Canadian nurses don't know how to do. So those who are passing here are actually getting like 90 or 93 or better because that's the weighting of the test. So we have some great nurses who then, whether or not they're treated the way they should be by the government is yet another discussion not related to anime. But that's what it boils down to. I think
We've wandered.
Like a payment company, if you're trying to be a massive payment company, you have to say NSFW content in one shape or another is a big part of the economy. And if you want to play in the big pond, you gotta let people pay for it with your stuff. That's just the way it's going to work.
Especially with how much the sex industry put into essentially making secure payment an option in the early days of the internet.
Yeah. They not only did the early days of the internet, home video, a lot of the industry analysts I've seen who've gone back to say, why did VHS win over beta? When for those first few years, they were at the same price point and VHS was an inferior product. And the one distinction they could find in the first 4 years of competition is that Sony owned beta and said no to NSFW. And VHS said, go ahead. And that was the tipping point. That's why the inferior format won.
Yeah.
So you can picture what the world is going to be, but if you try to be the 500-pound gorilla changing payments, you're not going to rewrite that part of the world. There's a reason they call it the oldest profession. There is a niche and a need for it.
Also, it's just a cliche now because it's always true that the same people who get all morally panicked over this kind of thing are the same people with all kinds of horrible content on their personal computers, right? Like, you're not fooling anybody with your performative virtue. So it's just it grinds my gears, the hypocrisy of it all.
Yeah, I remember being when a couple of specific states were fighting against gay marriage in the States. And I'm looking forward to the day when we can just call it marriage and don't care if it's gay or straight. But when they were fighting against gay marriage, for a while there, Pornhub's response was to say, okay, if you live in those states, you have that problem with it, we are going to cut off your access to gay content. And when that happened, a lot of people were going, yay, that's hilarious. And that was my first reaction. And then an hour later, I went, wait a minute. If you are gay and in that state and they're that opposed to gay marriage and it's that opposed in general, that's where the gay people are probably going to be least comfortable coming out.
People, yeah.
And the internet is probably the most likely source of the content that will help them self-satisfy. And you just cut that off.
Network connection lost.
So, yeah, I went from yay to maybe you're hurting the people you're trying to help.
Mm-hmm. Similar sort of things with some of the ways that sites are. Well, really, there's different odder legal things going on with the recent series of laws about requiring identity verification to access various online services, whether it's social media, with that potentially also being that also impacting Steam and similar services as well. And so it will be interesting to see how things go with that, but particularly with the rise in use of VPNs in the wake of all of this, including the massive outreach campaigns, for example, from the British government saying, please stop using VPNs to circumvent our requirements, which admittedly also leads straight to Streisand effect, but hey.
Well, funny thing about VPNs is that they're just becoming almost ubiquitous. Like, I just got a new computer because my last one basically decided to keep crashing because of the mandatory Windows 11 update. Yeah, the basic antivirus stuff that comes with it for a full year contains a VPN. It's like, okay, this isn't like the basic antivirus software is coming with a VPN these days.
Yeah, my current VPN. Yeah, my current VPN, it's by a privacy company, and I think it's hilarious that it's got a couple of default profiles. There's fastest from your country, fastest connection anywhere in the world, and one of the VPN profiles is watch streaming content from another country.
Yeah.
So they've recognized it, just open about, yeah, we know what you're using it for.
We know you're going to do it.
So we will help you find an IP address that they're not blocking yet. Just tell us which country you want to pretend you're from.
Information must flow.
Yeah. All right. And speaking of, I guess now's a pretty good place to segue into our primary topic, which is the anime we're covering this month. Macross II, a 6-episode OVA from 1992.
Okay, question, Alex, because I know you will have done the research on it. Was it always a 6-episode OVA? Because I swear, when I watched this on VHS, it was like a movie.
So it was originally released in Japan as a 6-episode OVA, and some of the early releases, like from US renditions, had it edited into film form.
Thank you. I was like, I remember this being a movie.
It was real.
I've got the VHS at home. Well, my parents' home. I meant my home.
Yeah, right next to the Genie movie with Sinbad.
It was real.
Kazam? Oh, Sinbad now.
Yeah, no, there is a GD movie with Shaquille O'Neal, but a lot of people seem to remember that it was Sinbad for some reason. Yeah.
It was definitely...
because that was real. A lot of people saying, wasn't that a ripoff of a Sinbad? No, Sinbad never made one. Although he did take part in a comedy sketch where they put together on VHS a trailer for it, just to really screw with me.
My brother texted me last week and was like, "You remember The Secret of Nim?" And I was like, "Are you joking me with that? Do you remember The Brave Little Toaster?" And it was like realization washed over his face in real time. He was like, "Oh my god." These things existed.
Yep. Production-wise, we'll get to this a bit real quick, because the production history of this is kind of weird in a fun way, in a way that most things Macross after the original series are. This came out about 10 years after the original Macross television series, which was the first third of Robotech. That series was a three-way production between Tatsunoko Productions, Studio Nue, who handled mechanical design and some of the concept stuff, and a studio called Big West. And after the series wrapped up, there were some legal complications and falling out between the three studios, which did eventually get hashed out, but at this point, which was the 10-year anniversary, they had not been hashed out yet. So Big West decided, we want to do something for the 10-year anniversary, because you only get your 10-year anniversary for your original big franchise launch once. So we're going to put together a 6-episode direct-to-video OVA, since the OVA market's still kind of big, with a whole bunch of various studios working on this. But notably, no involvement from Tatsunoko, no involvement from Big West, no involvement from a lot of the main originals.
You mean Studio Nue?
Sorry, no involvement from Studio Nue, which means no involvement from a lot of the original staff. So, like, Shinji Aramaki is not doing the Valkyrie designs, for example, for the mechanical design for this show, whereas he did a lot of the stuff for the other series. There are some, but they did get the original character designer from Macross on board to do the character design, so you have that continuity of visual style there.
I don't know if that's true. That guy knew how to draw ears and where they go on the head.
No, I checked the credits. They got the original character designer.
But did they listen to
just
him?
Because he designed the characters doesn't mean people stuck to the reference sheets.
Okay, that's true. That's true.
So yeah, that's Haruhiko Mikimoto. Also had Mosam. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say with the character designs, compare it to Yoshitaka Amano and what he did for Final Fantasy 1 through 6 versus what they were actually able to represent in the games.
Yeah.
Not as pronounced in 7, 8, 9 when they had PlayStation graphics.
They did their best.
Yeah, the first 6, they had, it must have been painful for them going, oh, what do we have to remove from this design? Because it just won't work.
I would like to point out the Celis sprite versus the Celis art they're completely different.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You could have a great character designer. That doesn't mean that's the design you're actually going to see on screen.
That's absolutely. Sorry, we keep interrupting Alex.
Yeah, so that's okay. Yeah. So our series is set in the quick synopsis. Courtesy in this case, I'm just going to go off of TV tropes for this one. That series set in the year 2092, 80 years after the conclusion of SDF Macross' original series. Humans in Centrati have made peace and rebuilt Earth's society, with the prosperity interrupted only occasionally by the occasional Zentradi fleet, which is normally defeated using what's referred to as the Mid-May defense, basically the same way they basically bombarding them with pop music and culture, and they either surrender or get blown up. However, when the solar system is invaded by the fleet of a new alien civilization, the Marduk, the usual strategies are ineffective, particularly since the Marduk also have the power of music through their emulators, whose songs of battle are used to control the Marduk's enslaved Zentradi warriors. during the first battle, reporter Hibiki Kanzaki, who was initially introduced as kind of a tabloid scandal hound, but becomes an intrepid reporter over the course of the series, which manages to rescue one of these emulators, a beautiful woman named Ishtar. He takes her back to Earth and introduces her to, well, culture. And leading to the conflict where Ishtar realizes that there is indeed more to life than going from planet to planet and wiping them out, and tries to bring peace to the Zentradi that are under the control of the leader of the Marduk, while also contending with a Marduk commander, Fef, who's trying to retrieve her and bring her back into the fleet. Actually, to kick this off, Blaine, you are actually coming into this with probably the best position, closest position to someone watching this back in when this came out in the United States, where your background is, anime background is generally primarily Robotech, but with not necessarily a lot of familiarity with the larger Macross franchise. So, what did you think of Macross 2?
It's the same reaction I had when I picked up Macross Plus on DVD. It's the realization that when they cannibalized Macross to build it into the first 36 and a half episodes of Robotech, they shifted priority on the themes and what they were saying. So this is a sequel to something I've sort of seen, but because I've never actually seen Macross as Macross, I've only seen it where they're splicing in stuff from... So in the unlikely event someone listening to this doesn't know, when they were making Macross, they were looking for a minimum of 65 episodes to go into daily syndication, but the company that was doing it for the model making to sell the model toys did not have the funds to buy the rights to anything that ran 65 episodes. But they realized they could take Macross and Mospeda and Southern Cross for 36, 24, and 24 episodes each. And those add up to more than 65. They actually add up to 84. They did some cross-cutting and editing to introduce Robotech Masters into the Macross section and make it a multi-generational story, creating a complete episode from splicing in stuff from the first and second series to make an 85 episode count. And that's the version of Macross I know. And in doing so, introducing the Robotech Warriors, it's a very different view on the Zentradi. It was weird in Macross Plus when the Zentradi were acting autonomously, and it was weird here when the Zentradi had masters who are not the Robotech masters. So while I enjoyed it, I kept having to mentally reset going, no, the version I know, this doesn't line up as a sequel to what I saw. It's not because this is written badly, it's because what I saw was a bastardization of the actual source material. Maybe not quite bastardization, because I still think Robotech is an effective finished product, but the way that they chose to edit it in changed enough elements of the first that watching a sequel to Macross and a sequel to Robotech don't jive.
Robotech was wildly creative, but also the audacity.
I mean, it took Carl Masick 6 weeks to figure out how to get it done and to do the editing. And that is a feat of, I would say, miraculous. It's a miraculous feat, is what he did in so little time. And I will give him infinite credit for that. And I will give Harmony Gold the big double deuce till the end of time for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, again, Carl Masick, he did his job well. If you think about it, how many other TV series can you think of where the production schedule is shorter than the broadcast schedule? Because that was a 17-week broadcast schedule, an 85-episode count at 5 episodes a day, and he did it in 6.
5 episodes a week.
Yeah, 5 episodes a week.
I don't think they were doing 5 episodes a day.
No, the 5 episodes a week thing started with He-Man, but that's a subject for a different podcast, which I've already recorded and released for a different podcast series.
Building up a picture in my head of this guy like Scotty from the original Star Trek. A miracle worker.
Like
I am picturing somebody... This was the 1980s, so I can't decide if my mental picture of him working on that scale involves caffeine, cocaine, or both.
Right, and the shoulders.
Carl Masick did so much for the industry and so much for localization, because before him, and you can really tell from like early dubs, they're just basically doing it straight instead of trying to figure out equivalency. And he did a lot for, figuring out, okay, this joke does not translate, but I know we've got something that's the same sort of thing, and they're substituting in that.
Yeah, for a while there in the 90s, I was very much a translation purist, and I was like, why can't they release it with, like, as it actual what they're actually saying in the Japanese version? It took me a while to realize that translation is an extremely nuanced and complicated art, and sometimes getting the vibe across is better and more desirable and better for the story than a straight translation.
Yeah, my wife will actually sometimes work as an interpreter for extra cash on the side, and she is adamant that translation and interpretation are very different. So translation is where you just kind of go like word by word or sentence by sentence and change it from language A to language B. If you do that, turning English into Vietnamese, you will see, and you see a piece of cake written in English, you will not replace it with an idiom meaning this is very easy in Vietnamese, right? A translator will actually put a piece of cake there, and the Vietnamese reader will go, what is that? That makes no sense. Why is that here?
Right.
Whereas an interpreter will say, we're trying to say this is very easy to do. What is a Vietnamese idiom that says that? And if one doesn't exist, you just say, oh, this will be easy. Right? That's interpretation. You turn it into something that the target, the intended audience will understand.
But going back to Macross 2, of all the Macross productions, it is definitely among them. Like, watching it again, I barely remembered, like, anything. And watching it again, I see why. It's not very memorable. It's trying to speedrun the original Macross into 6 episodes, and even compacting everything they did, there's not enough time, and by the end of it, they were clearly running out of budget. The animation in the last couple episodes really, is very suspect when people going off model, and you're just like, did this get farmed out to a totally different company?
Funny that you say the episode that it's not particularly memorable when you go from watching the movie years ago to watching the anime here, because I watched 3 episodes through Disney Plus on one device in 1 week, and apparently it hadn't finished syncing when I closed it, and I started on another device in another week, and I was 12 minutes into a 23-minute episode before I realized, wait a minute, I've already watched this one, and it was 4 days ago.
There is so much going on, and it does have the bones for a pretty good story, even if not a particularly original one. But they're just spending so little time on, like, each aspect. And even then, you want to go back, you're like, wait a minute. She's 17. Why was she coming out of a hotel room with her very clearly 40s or 50s commanding officer?
She was so mad that he was trying to get a gossip scoop on them, but she never refuted the accusation.
No one's refuting that this 17-year-old girl
who has her own squadron in the military at the age of 17
is clearly sleeping with commanding officer. At least 2 of her commanding officers, because after this, she like immediately goes into a date with a fellow pilot of a higher rank.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's just there's so many things.
I feel like the story and the characters could absolutely work, but there are just character opportunities missing. The use of the archetypes is inconsistent, and it was too much and not enough at the same time.
Yeah,
it really did feel like, as someone who never saw Robotech, who only saw Macross, it really did feel like they just wanted to do Macross over, but like really fast. And it missed out on all of the good character work and world building that made Macross a success. And at the same time, it really, like, the show really counts on you having seen the original. Because I feel like if you came at it without knowing what Macross is about, you would be so confused. Like, it'd just give you very bare bones explanation.
I don't... And I'm okay with a sequel that assumes you've seen the original.
Yeah.
Right, depending on how much time has gone in between. I think when Bryan Singer did Superman Returns, I think it suffered because he said, I didn't like Superman 3 and 4. I'm doing my own Superman 3, assuming the first two Chris Reeve movies happened. Doing that 23 years later and not making it crystal clear to audiences in the marketing, I think was a mistake. This one is weird in that
until this moment.
Yeah, these 6 episodes, it's weird. Watching them, these 6 episodes drag, but I think to fix them, you have to make it more than 6. Because what happens is there are some story beats they have to hit, but it's like, to go into any depth, we need to do at least 12 to 15 episodes to really cover why this 17-year-old is in that situation, to cover this, to cover that. But because they were only getting 6, they had to cut all those off, so they put in, you said it's got the bones, but they didn't have space to put any meat on the bones. They just laid out the skeleton.
It's just the bones. We were joking, like, the older reporter who dies in, like, the second episode. It's like
first
episode!
It's
like the fastest mentor arc of all time. Like,
like the
remember everything I've taught you! What did you teach me?
He's there. He's being wise, and then he's dead. Which, to be fair, is exactly how mentor arcs work. But it was like, we just met you.
At least Obi-Wan had most of the movie, and Luke knew him before then.
Yes, and Obi-Wan's death in the mentor arc was Alec Guinness's idea. I mean, he did it because he didn't like the dialogue. He wasn't sure if he was going to take the job. He took it because he liked American Graffiti and thought this guy was going places. And when they were halfway through filming, he's like, I know I'm supposed to be his mentor for this trilogy, but wouldn't it be a lot more meaningful if he died when he met Vader and then he only came back as a ghost? And his idea suggested that way he'd only have like 5 or 10 minutes of this dialogue to endure in each of the sequels. Instead of being there the whole time.
Levels.
Yeah. It was.
I was like, that was so fast. And I really like scrappy reporter main characters, I think because it reminds me of all the Godzilla movies I've watched.
Yeah.
Where there is often a scrappy reporter main character. And my brain kept wanting to get deeper into it and talk about the issues of, like, government censorship and freedom of the press that it brings up. But, I mean, the story itself, I feel like, repelled that. It did not want me to get too deep. It wanted to get to the cool space battle. And the hot lady singing. And, like...
And that's another problem. Like, the designs for the Valkyries were just exactly the same with a few lines changed. Like, the original Macross gave us the VF1 and its various iterations. 80 years later, Macross 2, we've got the VF2. And it's like, guys,
This is something I would never have noticed. With, different priorities.
And then the Metal Siren, the new one. It's like, okay, that is from a completely different design philosophy. That looks nothing like what's come before, and every time you're on the screen, you are out of place with everything else.
Yeah.
So I went and I looked up who the mechanical
the refit
designers
scale
are.
is like Enterprise to Enterprise A. 5.
The Enterprise A is great, but it was also just a few years later.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a 15-year time lag.
This show has...
And basically taking the same ship and refitting.
So this show had 5 mechanical designers. And so, of them, like the big ones we have are Hitoshi Fukuchi, whose basic main stuff is, before this, was Sonic Soldier Borgman, and later went on to do mechanical design for Sakura Wars and Gundam 00. Koichi Ohata, who is known as the creator and designer for MD Geist, and also went on to do character designs, mechanical designs for some stuff for Char's Counterattack before this. And that's kind of the big stuff there.
You know what? Again, it just felt like it's rushed to keep. Just all you only have time to tweak it and not rebuild it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like this came out, and I totally see why the original production companies are like, okay, this cannot be our legacy, and start production on Macross Plus right away, and then Macross 7.
The art was such a mixed bag. Because the background paintings I thought were great. They were very, like, 70s sci-fi novel cover. I liked that you could make out the brush strokes and that lines were just left as... Like, if you're doing a faraway shot of, like, a continent or a city or something, you could see just paint strokes left splaying out in all directions, and your imagination could fill in, like, are those docks or the, like, structures? What are they? So the background paintings were really good. The character animation was super bad. The drawings of the characters themselves were super bad. The proportions were all over the place. I don't mind the designs of the characters, although
Except the ears.
it took me a while to figure out whether Hibiki was wearing like a puffy jacket or some kind of armored pauldron thing going on. I think I landed on jacket, but it could have gone either way.
Which they don't even keep the color consistent.
They don't keep the colors consistent. The facial patterns on the Marduk were different from shot to shot.
Oh my
in
god.
color and pattern.
That kept bugging me with Zeph and all the close-ups. It's like, your face markings are different! And so I just figured by the end, it's gotta be like,
it's like
it
Rorschach.
changes depending on his emotions. It's the only explanation. Okay.
But I feel like the mechs were actually animated decently. The space battles, like the explosions were kind of lazy, but...
The problem is, like, the thing is that a lot of the designs for the Marduk ships and the Marduk mechs did not have limbs, which made them much simpler to animate.
They're just tubes in space.
Tubes, balls with like little things coming off. They're a lot simpler. You don't have to worry about how an arm is supposed to move.
But I'm talking about like the mech battles where like the Valkyries were transforming and the other Macrosses were fighting. I thought those were fine. Compared to the character designs, they weren't crazy off model and stuff.
This is true. They were able to keep an artistic style.
Yeah, it felt to me like they didn't have a rotoscope budget. But for the Valkyries, by just tweaking the original design, they could take the original models and toys and have the animators just put one in front of them and reproduce it. So it stayed on model effectively. While the characters, without rotoscoping, they weren't. And I mean, you talk about those having a hard time consistency on model. I am really prone to voice recognition. So there were times where I genuinely didn't know if I was watching, if I was the character I was looking at, is this supposed to be a new character and they just happen to be voiced by the same voice actor? Or is this just just so off model, it doesn't look like the same anymore?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I will recognize voices. It drives my wife nuts. We'll be watching a show together. Like, we're watching an episode of Murder, She Wrote from 1985, and I'm going, I know that voice. Who is this person? I recognize this person, but I don't recognize their face. Jump on the IMDb, and it turns out, yeah, they were in a two-parter Batman the Animated Series 13 years later, and that's the only other thing I've seen them in, so I am just keying in on the voice.
I do that myself.
I was generally going... Yeah, I was sitting here going sometimes, that is the same voice as this other character. Is it intended to be the same character and the model is just that bad in the animation? Or did they have that voice actor doing double duty? Because that happens too. Right? Do we have like James Doohan and TAS doing 80 voices per episode?
I think the voices were that great either.
No.
Yeah, the voice acting was not amazing. It was serviceable.
No. That's why I wasn't sure. Is this supposed to be a different character or is it just bad modeling?
Like that's like kind of the most damning thing I can say about Macross 2 is it's okay. It's not bad. It's just
not great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it fails to live up to what came before and also what came after. Like, Macross 2 is considered out of canon with everything else, except for Macross Do You Remember Love, the movie compilation.
This is one of those sequels that comes out and it feels like a cash grab and they're playing on your nostalgia for the original thing. And when you watch it, all you can think about is, I just want to go back and watch the original thing. Because it did it so much better.
This is like Die Hard 2, which came out quickly, and it basically followed the same template, and to the point where they even have, like, how can the same thing happen to the same guy twice is a repeated line in the sequel, because it is so much the same template, based on a novel by a completely different author who was trying to rip off the first Die Hard, which is, and ripping off the movie, because that movie is not faithful to the book at all. The book is enjoyable. If you've seen the movie, you can go read the book and don't worry about spoilers because you won't find any. Yeah. In fact, it's maybe on the short list of things where the movie is better than the book. But it feels like that, where they said, we know we have a good idea. We have the skeleton about it. But instead of saying, let's do this right and release it 3 years from now, it's, let's do it right away. So while Die Hard 2 came out a little too quickly after the first one hit huge to do it well, I think this was just, they realized the 10th anniversary was coming up. We have to have something for the 10th anniversary. They had an idea for something that could have been a really good 10th anniversary, but the green light came so late in the game, they didn't have time to do that idea properly. Right. You got government propaganda saying this is how the battles are going when that's not how they're going. I'm running into that in the Babylon 5 podcast I'm doing right now. There's a lot of meat on that bone. They didn't have time to cook it. It's just there.
I know.
Like, as
they had multiple military viewpoint characters who could have helped explain why things were the way they were, but nope.
Good ideas do not a good story make. And that is, like, I've seen great ideas in awful works. And occasionally horrible ideas done spectacularly well.
Occasionally, yeah.
No, but, okay. Batman and Robin is a bunch of good ideas done very, very badly.
It is. It absolutely is. Like, there's...
Alfred is Bruce Wayne's effective father figure. He's dying. He's actually going to lose his parents for real this time. Right. But there's... And I'm not going to put this on Schumacher. A lot of people lambaste Schumacher for this. You listen to the Laserdisc, or the commentaries recorded for Laserdisc by Tim Burton. Those are the ones used for the DVD and Blu-ray, and probably the 4K version of Batman and Batman Returns. And he will tell you how the studios were coming at him for Batman Returns, saying, we love the box office for the first Batman. We hate the merchandise sales, because you, aside from the Joker, you didn't have any other villains. Like, you have Bob. And the toy designs, they realized they didn't have names for these other characters and thugs that Batman was beating up. So the decision to cut Tim Burton loose after Batman Returns and go for younger audiences and more colors and more characters and more toys, that was made by the studio.
Yeah.
And I will maintain Joel Schumacher's talent is why that franchise made it to number 4 instead of dying with 3. Because all those decisions were already made. This feels the same. It feels like studios saying, okay, like you've got it, and this is all the resources and time we're going to give you. And the people doing it saying, oh, we don't have time to explore these themes. We'll just pepper them in and hope people get what we're going for.
Yeah.
I think also, not there.
Obviously, the poor
discussion
animators
about
were rushed to hell.
Yeah, with the discussion of similarities of like the Valkyrie designs, I was looking over the Anime News Network encyclopedia listing, and like one of the production companies on this is Bandai Visual, and I can see like if Bandai was the ones who put out the Valkyrie toys for Macross, then or model kits for Macross, I could see going, okay, for the mechanical design, look, we don't have a lot of time, and we need to get this out for 10th anniversary. Don't fiddle with the designs too much. That way we can just retool the existing models and the existing figure kits and a little bit and have those out in time for the release rather than doing like a big flashy new Valkyrie, and that will take more time to get up to production.
That can work when you're looking at, again, Enterprise and Enterprise A. There are incremental changes. but it was also an incremental time frame. The time frame we're looking at between Macross and Macross II is the same time frame between the Enterprise and the Enterprise D. And that's a more dramatic change. Right? Because I think that was about
It was
the use
the
of
A
these.
and the D are 80 years apart. Because
So the idea was that the first episode of Next Gen was supposed to premiere 78 years after the events of Turnabout Intruder. So we're in that A to D kind of range, or the original to D kind of range. And that, to me, felt more like 3 or 4 iterations. Whereas this, I mean, you have the Superdimensional Fortress crash land at the start of the Macross saga. You spend the Macross saga farming it and come up with designs. You're telling me that when there's no way they could have learned everything they could have learned from that fortress in that time period. Are you saying once they won at the end of Macross, they just stopped researching and seeing what they could have done?
That should have been. It does say that, right? It says the military's become so stagnant, because they can afford to put 17-year-olds in charge of squadrons.
Hey, only if they sleep with their commanding officers.
Oh my god! Sorry, that just gets me.
Oh my god! Yeah. And also, but there's a lot of things like her commanding officer, Commander Exegren. His name is so close to Exegol from the original Macross. It's like, okay, is he Micronized Zentradi? That would be a very interesting character to. Okay, he's gone again.
There's an ace pilot character who is there, has nothing to do.
Oh no, he went on a date with Sylvie.
Blip. It's a non-entity date. Okay, let me talk about the love story for a second, right? As a consumer of many love stories, this was it was really infuriating because it was simultaneously by the numbers and also completely dependent on you just going with it because nothing was fleshed out. When Sylvie and Hibiki were kissing at the end, I was like, wait, is something going on here? When did that happen? It came out of nowhere for me.
They wanted to redo the Minmei Hikaru Misa romance of.
Yes,
but
obviously.
Those people had chemistry.
And then Ishtar's like, Sylvie, you were a great rival, and I was like, what? When did this happen? In what universe were you two even interacting?
Did you exchange any words?
I will say, it was slightly more justified than Chakotay in 7.
Okay. For one reason. That was just purely... oh god, that is the most... that was literally settling
of that.
From
Robert Beltran and Brandon Braga. He gave Brett Bannon Braga that he wouldn't have Jerry Ryan kiss him.
Yeah, wouldn't
on
have the
screen.
balls to have his girlfriend kiss someone else on screen.
Yeah, and he bet him $100
that's
for
where the
it.
romance came from.
He bet him $100 for it, and it did not exist until the first time I watched the Voyager series finale. I had not watched anything else from season 7, and I accepted it and rolled it. I'm like, okay, I assume they built it up beforehand. When I actually did a structured rewatch and watched it all, and one episode left, I'm like, where was the build for that? Where is it? And then it comes in, I'm like, oh, I'm not misremembering. This is where it started. That's why people hated it. I figured they spent the season building up to it, and they just didn't like the pairing. It's like, no, they're just together now. It was...
From a romance viewer point of view, Fef was the best character. Fef was the most consistent in his behavior and actions. And for me, it really got me when he said, I wanted what I could never have. It's like that whole doomed unrequited love thing.
He's clearly covering for Ishtar the entire time.
It's like, you got me, I'm rooting for you, bud.
Because she's been refusing to sing from the beginning of the final battle, and we explicitly, he tells his minions, okay, link our Zentradi to other ships.
Cover for her,
yeah. Because as soon as other emulators stop singing, Inguist starts blowing up their ships. And it's like, okay, so he's been covering the whole time to make sure this is...
Yeah, he's just constantly watching out for her. And he never asks her for anything in return, and that's why it's attractive,
It's like,
because he doesn't feel entitled to her because he cares about her.
It's almost like, again, going back to Star Wars, the prequel trilogy. one of the things I really struggle with episode 2 and 3 is I think they did a good job of explaining why Anakin fell for Padme. And they did nothing to explain why Padme
she fell for him back.
Like,
agreed.
Unless they decide she's super, super shallow and thinks he's hot, there's no other justification for it. This love story feels like that, except from Padme's point of view and not Anakin's. There's no there, and then they're just together.
There's nothing there. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't
like,
get it.
Part of it, I kind of get. It's the, oh God, we're under so much stress, we're all gonna die. Also, let's die together.
Also, I'm very irritated about the Sumerian / Babylonian mythology references in the names Marduk and Ishtar, because they relate to nothing. It's like, if you're going to use a mythological reference, please have a reason for it.
Or at least tie it in thematically.
That's just a pet peeve of mine.
Maybe they saw the quality coming and named her Ishtar as a reference to the bomb from the 80s and not the Dustin Hoffman.
Either that or maybe they played the Tower of Jiraga, because Tower of Jiraga also has the Gilgamesh Ishtar name usage there, even though it has functionally no relevance whatsoever in terms of Babylonian mythology, having no other actual relevance to the story as a whole.
It irritates me more because they keep referencing a myth or a legend of the Marduk about the ship of the Alice, but we never learn anything about it. It's like, where did this myth come from? Were you guys a branch of the proto-culture? Or, who are the Alice, even?
Why are you following Lord Ingwes?
Why
does Lord Ingwes look like that?
Yeah. I mean,
why can they not keep his eye color consistent?
Yeah, and it switches multiple times. It's like,
he's got boat lights, but they switch. It's like, okay, is he going back on a decision now that he made before? Is that why they switched?
I mean, he clearly has no respect for life, even if it's his own people.
Yeah, I'm going to say he's got the same prescription in both eyes and lost one of the contacts, so he just keeps going back and forth. When one eye gets sore, he puts it in the other.
But sometimes they're the same color, and sometimes they're the same other color.
They were the same color at least once.
It's like,
he keeps finding it, but then losing it again.
Honestly, if they'd given a little glow or a glint, it's like, okay, even his eyes are artificial. Okay,
then
sure,
that would have been fine.
But okay,
there's so many things I want this show to have done, to have explored, and it didn't.
The Marduk obviously don't care about genetic or physical purity, but
we don't know anything about them.
All we know that they care about is destroying things. He literally says our culture is destroying things, and it's like, I'm sorry, that's not a culture. That's not actually a culture. That's just...
I mean, if you were destroying some things and stealing the others, that's culture. That's Britain. That's culture.
That's pirate culture. Yeah.
If they were taking things from others. You get the Brainiac.
You do not ask. You don't ask a man his salary, you don't ask a woman her age, and you don't ask the British government how it fills its museums.
But we all know the answer now.
Yeah, I've stopped saying that because I realized I found out the origins of the first two questions, how utterly sexist they are, and it's like, okay. That's why you don't ask a man his salary, because the man is paying more than the woman. You don't ask a woman her age because, the value of a woman is her youth, right? So I just stopped, but yeah.
In the first half of the series, it seems like the Marduk goal is conquest, and then once Lord Cyborg shows up, it switches to just destroy the heck out of everything. And it's like, why?
Why are you doing this? It's clearly not to get resources. It's not to get, slaves, because you're just trying to kill them. It's like, why are you doing what you are doing?
I think
are you, in fact, some sort of ancient intelligence that's, computer degradation over millennia? You've lost your original purpose. That's something. Give us...
That actually would have been a cool angle.
He's become so mechanical, he's lost why.
I think I want to pause for the listeners now. The way we've been talking about this for the last 30 or 40 minutes, it's going to make it sound like the series is a lot worse than it is.
That's the problem. Is that it's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's perfectly okay. It just has all the ingredients to be amazing.
Exactly.
This
is a poor 6-episode series that could have been a magnificent 36
so much
one.
on your own.
that's probably like I make comparisons of like of the series that we've had. Not I want to say complaints with. No, complaints is a good term for it. Or like, but like compare. I think about either with on the one hand the Senko Fox, Humble Fox Senko-san, which we did not like, and on the other hand, Tsukihime. Like this is much closer to like the Tsukihime kind of thing, where this is a story which has a lot of good stuff potentially in there, and it's much like Tsukihime. It just doesn't have the time. It is trying to do way too much in way too little time. It is 100 pounds of plot stuffed in a 5-pound sack. And like I do, and come to think about it, like part of the reason I picked it for this month is because this is August. This is the month of Gen Con. This is what we talk about tabletop role playing game adjacent anime here. Like this got a role playing game book adaptation from Palladium Books, who had that time had the license to Robotech, and I absolutely get why people would want to play in this set to do role playing game books in this universe, and why like this game this source this the Macross II role playing game actually got a fair degree of source books for it, not just from Palladium but from third parties like Blue Planet, not the Blue Planet, DreamPod 9 rather from on this as well, because there is so much room to expand on, because there's all these little things that they're left unworked on, and unfortunately the problem is it's stuck with the Palladium Games house system. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
I just want to put a brief, just the teeniest aside. Fuck Palladium Books.
Okay. They've gotten
know
better.
What they did.
They've gotten better, and we are actually going to get into what they did, but in just a moment. But we'll talk a little about the history of the Palladium system. So,
is it worse than the Final Fantasy IX fantasy guy?
So we talked about when we did Bubblegum Crisis last year that was made using a house system that was designed by Artosorian Games called the Fusion House System. We're going to run into this a lot with a lot of these anime games where people are going to be trying to adapt a house role-playing game system they have for the game in session for the setting in question, or will debut a house system through there. For Palladium, they adapted their Palladium house role system, which started way back with the Palladium Fantasy role-playing game. And the technical term among but role-playing game fans for the Palladium system and systems like it is a fantasy heartbreaker. That is a system that is built primarily on the bones and system knowledge and experience of advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and not much else. And while other game systems around the periphery will do other concepts with it, or do other role-playing game concepts, or create their own systems, like Tunnels and Trolls for fantasy stuff, or the Chaosium basic role-playing system that's used for RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu and that sort of thing, or Steve Jackson Games taking the Fantasy Trip system and adapting that to GURPS. Palladium has stuck very firmly with a class and level-based system that they designed for Palladium Fantasy, and has just used that for literally every other game they've made, and just tried bolting other settings onto it with varying degrees of clunkiness. They went and moved it to a more modern setting for their game, Ninjas and Super Spies. They attached superpowers to it for Heroes Unlimited. They attached a sanity system to it for, like, it was like Nightbane. They attached the ability to do anthropomorphic characters to it for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and other strangeness. And then for Robotech, they went, well, we have giant mechs and they can do more damage than a single person could even hope to handle. So they attached a mech design system to it for for the Robotech role-playing game system. The problem being is this is a class and level-based system, so Valkyrie Pilot is a class. Your whole thing, the Valkyrie Pilot class is you're a Valkyrie Pilot. Pop Singer is a class. It is all about just being really good at singing pop music. Which makes it weird for juggling role-playing game campaign characters, because you do have the pop singer rolling around with the Valkyrie Pilot a lot in Robotech and Macross, but when it comes from a mechanical design and an adventure design standpoint, it can get kind of weird and tricky. So
they didn't change the underlying crunch at all?
No. And even worse is the fact that your Valkyrie's stats were based on the Valkyrie and the equipment it had, so you were doing the same thing in your mech regardless of what your character could do.
Okay. Wow, all right.
Yeah, it's their system is notoriously very clunky.
Yeah, sounds it.
Like,
and this is why I hate them. This is another thing they've done.
To the point that one of the common things, and gets to one of these things why David may perhaps hate them, is they come up with interesting settings or interesting expansions on settings that they've licensed, like with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what people do is okay, well, we will try to convert and adapt these settings to other game systems that better fit the concepts they're trying to do, like multiversal post-apocalyptic action in Rifts, for example. And then, historically, what Palladium has done is threatened lawsuits. Cease and desist orders and repeated lawsuits, even over trying to do interoperability with the rules, in spite of the fact that legal precedent that has been set over the Monopoly case has been demonstrated to carry over to interoperability of role-playing game rules. You can't copyright a rule system. That hadn't stopped Palladium for years. It's only until very, very recently, within the past decade, probably in the past 5 years, have Palladium chilled the hell out and possibly fired their old IP lawyers, and allowed for things like Rifts to be adapted to the Savage Worlds role-playing game system, which actually works for the purpose. And that sort of thing. But yeah, to put an example here of how litigious Palladium is. There was this company that was putting out, in the 90s, a set of rules that were designed to fit modularly into any fantasy role-playing game system called the Primal Order, where it's meant to handle divine beings and nature spirits and powerful nature spirits and that sort of thing, and to handle that in ways that other role-playing game systems have tried to and not done as well. And they put out their first version of the rules, and including interoperability rules for TSR's Dungeons and Dragons, for RuneQuest, and that sort of thing. And one of the systems included was Palladium Fantasy Role-Playing, and Palladium sued. And that nearly killed this company. Which is a shame. Which would have been a shame, because they had this big project in the works that made them significantly financially prosperous. The company in question being Wizards of the Coast, and the game that might have never come out had this failed was Magic the Gathering. Fortunately, to tie things back to Bubblegum Crisis role-playing, Mike Pondsmith of R. Talzorian was at that time the head of the Game Association, and intervened and got Palladium to basically agree to a settlement that helped keep Wizards of the Coast intact. But yeah, that's an example of how litigious Palladium got. I assume that relates to why you're pissed, or is it something else, David?
Oh no. Oh. I can summarize my undying distaste for Palladium with 4 words: Kickstarter, Robotech, RPG, tactics.
Okay, fair. That was recollect from following the role-playing game industry. That was a spectacular cluster in a lot of respects, particularly with a lot of unfulfilled pledges and other similar stuff.
Okay. To give a quick background of it, they produced what was supposed to... Well, they advertised what was supposed to be a tabletop war game based on Robotech. With essentially every mech you can imagine from the entire Robotech saga. With differing scales. Like, you could have your Veritech versus Entrati, but then you could also, using the same rule set, have your Southern Cross motorcycles against... Okay. Essentially, you could do that, and they advertised it. And there were tremendous promises made during this campaign. And they were, at the time, I think, the most profitable tabletop Kickstarter yet, with nearly $2 million earned. However, they decided, oh, look how many people are interested in this. We'll just, instead of putting our money where we said we will, they lied for years until they produced the essentially the starter set, which they sent out to all the backers. And
Years.
years. But the problem is they overproduced that using all of the money from the Kickstarter, assuming that, oh, these were just the fans who Kickstarted us. Other fans will pay for this and will use that money to fulfill the rest of our Kickstarter. Because they only gave a fraction of the units. Essentially, it was, I think 5 are in the starter set. No. 7, because some things can be built in 2 different ways. So they lied. So Kevin Siam, however you pronounce his last name, Siembieda, was in contact with all of the backers, of which I was one, lying about, okay, we've got this in production, we're at this stage, we've got this, for years, until their contract with Harmony Gold ran out, at which point, because they didn't have money, because apparently to Kevin, he did not consider everyone who Kickstarted this, those are the people who are going to want to play this game, which is what most game producers who Kickstart do. It's like, okay, this is my audience, I'm probably not going to get more than this, so I shouldn't produce more. So you, to this day, can find sets of this on eBay for pennies on the dollar, lying about the entire thing until they literally ran out of time because their contract with Harmony Gold expired. And I can understand blowing through the money. It's the years of fucking lying to our faces until you're nearly bankrupt before you finally admit the truth.
That's pretty
That has earned the bad blood, yes. Yeah, this is not a case of, the people who hate on Marvel because they split up Peter and Mary Jane, which is just a different creative choice. No, this is actively screwing you over.
Yeah.
And it's so short-sighted, too, because before they made the decisions, the Kickstarter had earned them tremendous goodwill. Because the renders and the metal prototypes looked really good. And the production was gold plastic, which I think most people who are going to be listening to this are familiar with gold plastic syndrome and just how gold plastic becomes incredibly brittle over time. The sprues were laid out horribly. Yeah, it was horribly done, very overcomplicated, and of inferior materials.
Sounds like a certain ballroom under construction, but anyway.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yes, Macross 2. It's okay.
Macross 2.
It's a solid story. It's not going to amaze you. But if you just want to, relive the vibes of the original Macross in 6 episodes, go for it.
Yep. Unfortunately, normally we try to talk about the dub. We all watched this streaming because I had not received my physical copy from Kickstarter as yet, which is a bit of a bummer because the streaming, because of this recording, does not have the dub, which is a shame because there are some names you will recognize on the English dub. For example, Lord Fef is voiced by one Stephen J. Bloom, for example, who you may know as recurring voice of Wolverine, and also Spike Spiegel, and also Roger Smith, negotiator from the Big O, and so forth and so on. David's eye look is like confusion.
I'm trying to remember. It's like, okay, what else has he done? He was Orochimaru, right? Or is that
in
Naruto?
I think it might have been Orochimaru. He was also in Star Wars Rebels.
Oh yeah! Oh my God, Zev, and like so many stormtroopers. He played the role in Zeb Aurelius in the live action The Mandalorian cameo.
Have Debbie Rogers, who also appeared in 08 The Mobile Suit Team as Karen Joshua. She was the voice of Ishtar. This is like one of the earliest dubs being put out by U.S. renditions, and so you get a bunch of actors who either didn't do a bunch of stuff or went on to a very long and extensive dub history. Trish Ledoux was in this. She has been in tons of things, either as voice actor or doing lots and lots of editing and ADR production, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is a heck of a dub. Back there's one of the Kickstarter bonuses was a making of just for the dub for this series, which is fun. I got to watch that. It's when the physical copy comes out, it sounds like they are going to have that on the disc. So I'm definitely recommend once that's available to purchase that people get that.
It's the Macross show, and we ain't talked about the music.
Music. To talk about that real quick. Score and a lot of the songs were written by Shiro Sagasu, who did the music for Evangelion. So what do we think of the music for this?
I would not have made that mental connection.
It was music.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It doesn't stand out like so many other Macross shows do, and like a lot of Macross is built on its music, and this one wasn't.
It's waiting for a big old show-stopping number at the end.
There were no like huge
really,
numbers.
Didn't really happen.
There was, there was the occasional pop performance by
random pop artist.
human pop artist that they're playing for enemy fleets. Ishtar got a song in the final episode.
It wasn't like a big show-stopping number. I was bummed.
No.
Yeah.
There was no Cheryl Nome. There was no Firebomber. There's no Lin Minmay.
Firebomber.
There's no whoever the group in Macross Delta was. I saw it once.
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with WKRP in Cincinnati?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. In the original broadcast run, the creator wanted to have timely music in it. So that's one of the reasons they shot it on video, because that dropped the music licensing rights, which is why WKRP is, okay looking on DVD and it's probably never going to come to Blu-ray or Ultra HD. But when it went to syndication, they'd figured out the value and they had to negotiate rights, and some places didn't. So when you watch WKRP in syndication, they will name drop a great song and then play some Muzak replacement that kind of sort of feels similar, but definitely is not the same song. Like, there's a maybe 5% at most of the original music survived into syndication. This feels like Macross was the broadcast cut of WKRP, and the music here is the syndication run. Where it's kind of sort of similar. It's the elevator Muzak version of the song you like, because they're doing the cheaper version. It's just so It gets the job done, but I'm not humming it after the episode is over.
That's a good way of putting it. I didn't find myself feeling the need to seek out the soundtrack on streaming services like I did when watching Macross 7, for example. I own all the CD releases for the Macross Plus soundtracks, and I sought those out because that music stands out as a major part of that series plot, and I appreciated
really
that. But yeah, like here it's like there's music present, but it doesn't like mesh itself as part of the story in the same way, and nor does it just have that also degree of like, oh, this is a real solid bop. You understand why in the setting people like it and are listening to it all the time. And I feel the need to want to listen to it on my own, the same way with the other Macross soundtracks.
It really stuck out to me because I'm still firmly in the heart of the K-pop Demon Hunters fandom right now, and that movie is all about, the absolute bangers that are the soundtrack. And it's like, I just watched a Macross show and the music was like a non-entity. Like, that shouldn't happen.
Like even down to the characters, like, Ishtar is supposed to be our singer character. You got one in every Macross, sometimes multiple. But her character didn't seem to revolve around music. Like, it was her character was very much the stranger in a strange land learning about this culture. And, in fact, the fact that she won't sing is often more important than the fact that she will.
Also, like, they could have done some really cool things with the emulators' songs and music, but that, you got Cyborg leader guy going, sing the song of death, and then it's just nothing but like a generic drone.
It's the one woman wail.
Yeah, it's just, oh man. You could have done so many cool things.
you could even change the song style, because like recently I watched the Dune movies, and like
good
what
wailing
they did
in that.
Yeah, the wailing also. But also I'm thinking here of like the music for the SardaKar, which is doing the throat singing.
Yeah.
And like they're a literal death cult, and like they're introduced to them in those films with them sacrificing people for to use their blood for war paint before going into battle. And I'm like, like you could have done, you bring it up, they could have done like different musical styles, like throat singing or something else. But instead, it's just very...
Or if you want it to be hauntingly beautiful, sung by hauntingly beautiful women, then lean into it and do some chanting in that weird language you developed. Like, don't just be voiceless frequency that doesn't really engage any sort of reference, You have the whole human history of music making to draw on there. I feel so bad
really
for the Zentradi. I really do. Like, if you're gonna get jerked around by audio frequencies, to have them be so boring.
The song is death. Oh God, I want to kill myself listening to this.
Yeah,
that's not a great
bomb.
I mean, that was the song of death. Make them go on suicide runs. That's why. I was like,
it's too bad we can't take it.
I have to keep listening to this. I'm
gonna die.
Yeah,
and the emulators weren't even harmonizing.
Ramming speed, make it stop.
Make it stop. They're not even harmonizing.
Yeah, honestly, something beside like the weird grunting from the Marduk's Zentradi warriors would have been something. Like, give me something of what they're feeling when these songs are hitting them.
And that's part of why this was. That's part of why this is so frustrating, because the original chunk, both the humans and the Zentradi have fully realized cultures. And here, the Zentradi culture is absent. They've been turned into the puppets to introduce a third one. So they're on screen a lot, but completely inconsequential. They didn't even need to be the Zentradi. The Mardics were the threat. They could have enslaved a completely different race. And I feel like if I were doing this, I'd done like 36 episodes, and had the Mardics enslaving a completely different race, and have the humans have to reach out to the Zentradi to help with the defense, because the music defense doesn't work.
And then it backfires spectacularly because the Zentradi fall under the emulator's control. It's frustrating because we sitting here could come up with so many cool ideas.
Like, even if we were limited to 6 episodes, I feel like there's a lot of fat that could have been cut to give us more.
Yeah, instead of giving superficial exposure to 8 different themes, just pick one and do it well. Right. Even if it's just, like, all they had to do is, like, I mean, we talked about the government propaganda. That could have been the full 6 episodes. The government are saying this is what happened, and play down as it's just that they weren't familiar with music. Have it come back saying the history's been rewritten, and have a reporter uncover the truth and deal with the propaganda. Right? You don't even need an alien threat. You've got the government lying to its people. You could deal with that. There's so many things that could have on their own made a great episode that were skirted and not done well.
So, fanfic writers, go forth and fix it.
You know, should we check to see how many tags this has on AO3?
We should check. Someone has probably fixed it already.
I do legitimately, honestly, like, bring that up. I'm like, I kind of wish I had the thought to look up on AO3, like, hey, what's the fanfic scene like for Macross 2? Particularly now it's available for streaming now. But, like, actually, like bringing, I can see the one reason why they wouldn't necessarily do the government lying thing is because not that long before this, we'd gotten Megazone 2-3 parts 1 and 2 in 85 and 86. And that just gets a little bit too close to the plot of those. I can see them going, we don't want to step on the toes of that too much. But still, and also actually 2-3 parts 1, 2, and 3 all get into that concept. So, Megazone 2-3 part 23 part 3 exists, and that's all I will say about that. There's a good series of episodes on the Giant Robot FM podcast on that theme that will recommend for covering that instead.
There's only one. There's only one Macross 2 tag on AO3, and it's alongside every other Macross in the same work.
Missed opportunity, people.
It does not have its own dedicated stories. Yet.
Okay, we might just have to do this ourselves.
So
listeners, get out there on AO3, do your own Macross 2, and tag anime explorations in the process so people know that you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So, any other final thoughts on Macross 2?
Good bones. Needs work.
It wasn't bad. I don't hate it. It was just a little disappointing.
Also, I feel the need to draw the characters with like proper proportions and stuff.
Yeah, I admit I haven't seen Macross Plus since it was new. But if someone came to me and said they've done the first Macross, they've done Robotech, they want more in this world, I would jump to Macross Plus, because to me, it was easy to follow, and I have more fond memories of the experience of watching that than this. The Macross franchise is very broad, and unless you're saying, I want to do the whole franchise in chronological order, it's not a priority. Do it, get around to it when you've consumed everything else. Or perhaps, because it is so weak compared to the rest, jump in here first knowing, it's only uphill from here. So you're not ending on a down note if you leave it for last.
I think if someone was asking me where to start Macross, my first question would be, what's your favorite kind of music?
Fair.
Because, if someone says rock, I'm going to absolutely tell them Macross 7 first. Which is how she got started. If someone wants, late 2000s pop, go with Frontier. If someone's going more for, I love K-pop, Delta is there for you.
It helps that we now live in the world where all of Macross is on Disney Plus / Hulu. So if
they don't have Do You Remember Love?
Okay, that is fair. You don't have to remember love, but like in terms of like the different chunks of the Macross story, like particularly after if you finish the Macross saga of Robotech or hunted down the ADV DVDs of the original series or the Amigo DVDs of the original series and gone through those and said, okay, now where do I go from here? You have like they're all on the same streaming service now, so it's the one subscription, and you just take what you want.
I'm actually quite excited because I didn't know there were all these Macross 7 movies. I'm gonna watch them.
Yeah. So honestly, it's not a bad place to start. If you watch it and you're wanting more, there's plenty for you.
More and better.
All right, and with that, next month, it's September, so it's back to school. So for our educational topic of the year, we've done various how-to educational things. We've done how animation gets made. We've done microbiology. Now it's time for some literature. And so we double check to make sure that that the license has not expired, so I don't have to call an audible. So the current plan is going to be Gankutsuou, the Count of Monte Cristo, which, when last I checked, was available for streaming on Crunchyroll. I will double check to make sure right now, to make sure it has not expired.
Yay, literary adaptation.
Yes, Gankutsuou is still available for streaming on Crunchyroll. It is a 24-episode long series, and is available with both subtitles and dub. I also have it also has received a physical media release, which I have. So there's that option as well. David and Tora, how are you familiar with Gankutsuou? Have you watched it before?
I'm not. I'm very excited.
Do you have any familiarity with the original story?
I do, yes.
Count of Monte Cristo, yes.
Literary adaptations are one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm going to be a yapper.
He's the guy that made the really good egg dick sandwiches, right?
Yeah.
Good call.
Man, no.
Those are good sandwiches.
All right. In the meantime, Blaine, what in terms of your projects do you have going on right now? Do you want to plug?
Well, the ones that are actively being released right now are 99 Years, 100 Films, where we're going through every winner of the Best Picture at the Academy Awards, including the very first ceremony when there were 2 winners. So at this point, we are releasing monthly. So we only have 98 of the winners announced so far. We have 2 more ceremonies to go through. But yeah, they are coming out. The releases are currently about the mid-90s. I'm also doing a Babylon 5 podcast with John Wilson. So we are going through everything Babylon 5. It's Babylon 5 30 years later. We cover episodes 30 years after their release. The only things we are not doing 30 years after release are The Gathering, because we didn't want an 11-month gap between our first 2 episodes. And then after Crusade wraps, we're going to be tightening the release schedule on the movies that came out years apart after. Because again, we don't need a 13-year gap in the middle of the podcast. And that's also why I was watching so many shows that we talked about last month. But yeah, so those are the 2 ongoing. John and I we've started recording the Star Trek Reading Hour. So that will premiere on September 8th, 2026. But I've already dropped the trailer in its own podcast feed, so you can subscribe now. Once a month, we're going to go through a Star Trek novel. And when we're through Babylon 5, we are going to start recording Cherry Pie and Murder, which is our Twin Peaks series where we turn the tables, because I'm familiar with Babylon 5, John is first time through, and I'll be the first time through Twin Peaks, where in that case, John is familiar. And again, going through tie-in novels and other tie-in media, of which there is much less for Twin Peaks.
All right.
I am very much enjoying the Babylon 5 podcast, and I'm also very much looking forward to whenever the time comes for the Twin Peaks podcast.
Yeah, well, we'll see, because our Babylon 5, our next release, in the broadcast breaks, that's when we film the comics and stuff. So we're going to wrap up the 11-issue comic series in September, and then season 2, the rest of season 2 comes out in October. Meanwhile, John and I have recorded our coverage of the first 18 episodes of season 4. So we are pretty much 2 full seasons ahead in our recording schedule right now.
Question on that. Are you going to wait like 18 years to do the movie that just came out?
No, so after Crusade is done, the 3 or 4 movies, we are going to release them probably more like monthly. So yes, the road home will be a few months after that.
All right. All right. So in the meantime, if you enjoy what you heard, please consider backing the Patreon at patreon.com/count0or. Patreon backers get access to edited versions of my live streams, of essays, both video and written, and of course this podcast up to 1 week in advance. And if that doesn't work for you in terms of the doing the monthly subscription thing, I have a Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/count0. That's tossing a bit of money in the tip jar, helps cover hosting costs and all sorts of wonderful stuff like that. And finally, rate and review on the podcasting platform of your choice. It helps let people know that we exist. General word of mouth helps as well. And finally, if you have anything you'd like to, like any questions or anything like that for us, or feedback on any of our past episodes that you'd like to share, please email us at animeexplorationspod@gmail.com. All right. Thank you all very much for listening, and we will see you next month.
Happy summer, everybody.
I mean,
Stay hydrated.